So Riccardo Calafiori will allow Arsenal to line up in 10 different ways, 10 different combinations that Mikel Arteta can play with in defense. Now, we know that Mikel Arteta wants to make his team a little bit unpredictable or very unpredictable as much as he can. And at the beginning of the last season, he played Thomas Partey at right back, Ben White and Saliba at centre back, and then he played Alexander Zinchenko and Timber at left back. That means that Gabriel Magalhaes was out of the lineup for the beginning part of the season, which angered many Arsenal fans, but you can see what Mikel Arteta is trying to do. He's trying to make his team very unpredictable. And Riccardo Calafiori allows Mikel Arteta to do just that. Because by signing a player like Riccardo Calafiori is very versatile and very talented and good on the ball, it allows him to play around 10 different combinations, and this is going to confuse opponents. It means that you cannot predict what Arsenal are going to put on the pitch and what kind of formation they are going to play. How are they going to invert? Are they going to invert from the left? Are they going to invert both ways or invert on the right hand side? That is why Riccardo Calafiori is a good signing for Mikel Arteta and Arsenal as well. So let's dive into these different ways and these different combinations that Mikel Arteta can play with Riccardo Calafiori. So the easy way is Mikel to play Riccardo Calafiori as a left back. We know that he plays in both places, centre back around there where you have Gabriel Magalhaes, and then at left back where you have the likes of Zinchenko and Timber, where they've been fighting for. With left back, Mikel Arteta has already said that he doesn't trust all the options that he has in that area. Obviously, that's a lie. With players like Julian Timber, you have a lot of quality. But I think what Mikel Arteta wants is balance. When he lines up with such a kind of lineup, you have Ben White, who's got very, very good speed and ability to bomb down the right-hand side and give a lot of, overlapping runs to Saka, which makes him a little bit better. And then with Riccardo Calafiori, now you have a centre-back, just like Ben White, who can run down the left-hand side and allow Gabriel Martinelli to cut inside and have a lot of joy on that hand side as well. So it's going to be a balanced Arsenal side with Riccardo Calafiori in the team as compared to having a player like Julian Timber here. Let me explain. With Julian Timber, you have a right-footed left-back, the way we saw Kieran Trippier for England at the Euros. They are good and they are very good footballers and they're very good probably defensively. But the problem with that is when you're attacking, they cannot actually give you the same amount of quality and the same amount of speed as a player who is going to be who is left-footed playing on the left-hand side, especially at left back. So that's the first thing Arsenal get with Riccardo Calafiori playing at left back, a little bit of balance, that the quality you get from Ben White is the same quality you get from Riccardo Calafiori going forward. And also that means that in the event that Arsenal want to invert with either of the two players, it's now very, very possible. First and foremost, what we can see is that Riccardo Calafiori can move into midfield. Ben White has also moved into midfield at times, and that means that you'll have Gabriel splitting up with Saliba right here, and then the defensive midfielder for this case could be Thomas Partey, could be Declan Rice. Let's just go with Thomas Partey for this case, because Thomas Partey is the player that we know is going to be playing in the position until further notice. So Partey can then drop in between these two to form a back three. Probably not as deep as this, obviously, but if Gabriel pushes up, Partey pushes up, and Saliba pushes up as well. So that means that Mikel can have two of his fullbacks, that is Calafiori and Ben White, just inverting, Thomas Partey drifting into that position where you can see him right now. A little bit of how Toni Kroos did it for German at the Euros, and it's going to be absolutely, absolutely massive. So here we've seen Kimmich do this for German at the Euros, inverting in this position, and then we have also seen Mittelstadt also drive into this position for German at the Euros, and it was fantastic and beautiful to watch. So that's the first way Mikel Arteta is going to play with these two, but of course there is another way. What if Mikel Arteta wants to invert with one player? That, let's say, Ben White. So he can actually do that. He can play Ben White in this area here. He can allow him to come into the midfield, just a little bit. He can allow him to come into the midfield, and then he can invert with him and form a back three with Riccardo Calafiori, Gabriel, and and Timber. That's going to be one of the ways that we see him do that. But also, if he wants to invert with Riccardo Calafiori, Calafiori can move into the midfield. Arsenal stretch out in the back with Gabriel in a back three, Saliba in a back three, and White in a back three as well. That means that Riccardo Calafiori is the one inverting in the midfield with the likes of Thomas Partey around there. So it's a very, very interesting formation that we are going to see, especially with Riccardo Calafiori coming in at Arsenal. But we could also see what Mikel Arteta tried to do at the beginning of last season, where he put Gabriel Magalhaes out of the starting 11. So let's explore that, shall we? So if Calafiori moves into centre-back, with Saliba, and Ben White keeping his position just for now, we could see Gabriel totally out of the lineup. So we could remove him, and instead of him, we shall add Alexander Zinchenko. Just a moment, right? Just a moment. I know he's not a popular one, but just hear me out. So with Alexander Zinchenko playing around here, it allows Mikel Arteta again to have a very, very interesting lineup and a very, very interesting, way of setting up. So Alexander Zinchenko can actually invert into midfield better from left back, better than Thomas Partey was doing it at the beginning of last season. And his positional awareness is not that good as well, but at least he's done it for 2 good seasons or even 3 good seasons. He's a master of doing it rather than Thomas Partey. So that means that, Zini just moves into midfield. And what this does, it allows us to have a proper left back, stroke centre back, covering for Alexander Zinchenko. William Saliba will also be in the middle right here, and then Ben White will also be in form of forming a back three with them. So again, that's another combination. If Mikel Arteta said, probably you're playing a team like Ipswich, probably playing a team like Bournemouth, you want a little bit more of control in the team, you just allow yourself to play Alexander Zinchenko. And the beauty with this is that, although this might be a little bit dangerous, but the beauty with this is that if Calafiori moves into midfield with his pace and directness and dribbles, then you could have Alexander Zinchenko stay back because he's also a left back. Now, this is a little bit difficult, but listen to me. The reason that's why you can allow this to happen is Riccardo Calafiori has got the ability to recover quickly, but then he's also very, very good at ball interceptions. That means that with Calafiori, a player like Martin Odegaard and Kai Havertz around here, you can steal the ball back, you can win the ball back before it causes problems for Alexander Zinchenko. So that's another way Arsenal will be able to set up with Riccardo Calafiori in the team. So let's get him back to left back, and let's get Zini back into position. So let's get rid of Alexander Zinchenko. Obviously, he's not going to play as a centre back. So what about Julian Timber? How do we allow ourselves to utilize Julian Timber with a player like Riccardo Calafiori in the team? So with Julian Timber, the first thing we could see is Calafiori and Timber swapping out. Timber playing at left back and Calafiori playing at centre back. Again, this is going to be very important. Why? Because for Manchester City, we have seen John Stones do this a lot of the time. He gets out of the he plays as a centre back. He starts as a centre back, but then when it comes to inverting into midfield alongside Lodri, it is not one of the left backs or right backs that actually inverts. It's actually Stones who drifts out of the centre back pairing and then comes into midfield. So Riccardo Calafiori could give this to Mikel Arteta as well. So look at this. Calafiori moves into midfield, right? A bit like John Stones does it. And then, of course, we know that Riccardo Calafiori can play up until this, edge of the penalty area. So let's say Riccardo Calafiori joins up the midfield. What Arsenal would have is 3 very good defensive options at the back. And also 3 very comfortable players on the ball at the back. Timber is fantastic on the ball. So if Calafiori moves into midfield, Timber just drops back a little bit and provides that kind of support. William Saliba is so calm when Arsenal are faced with a counter-attack. So he stays central. And Ben White is is basically a center back. Any kind of threat, we should be able to neutralize it. The other way, why this is actually a very good lineup and why it makes a lot of sense, is Julian Timber could actually be the one to invert. So if Timber is starting out at left back and Calafiori is starting out at center back, what we might see is Timber again drifting into the middle. We've seen this a lot of the time with Zinchenko, with Tomiyasu, with Kivio, with a couple of players that Mikel Arteta loves doing this. His left back moving into midfield, and then Calafiori just moving out wide and making sure that everything is absolutely under very, very good control and under very, very good calm. So that's another way we could actually set up. The other way that we might set up, and this is going to annoy you, but just listen to me, is if Calafiori plays at center back, Julian Timber plays at left back, we rest Saliba. I mean, they need some rest, these players. At times, you could rest them. So if maybe Saliba is out of the starting 11 and we've chosen to rest him, we could just delete him out of the starting 11. I know many of you want him to play every single game, but that's a little bit impossible, and it shouldn't happen in a proper team. So let's say who replaces him. Let's say Tomiyasu. Tomiyasu is a very good shout, isn't it? Very, very, very good shout. So let's say Tomiyasu, popular player, loved by the fans, and very, very solid at the back. So Tomiyasu plays at right back. So we could have Calafiori, Ben White, Tomiyasu, and Julian Timber as another combination at the back. And again, with this one, you still have the same advantages. Calafiori moving into midfield, and then you form a back three. Or Riccardo Calafiori staying at centre back, and then Timber inverting, and then you form a back three with these three. So again, Tomiyasu is very, very fantastic when it comes to playing at right back. He can provide that kind of width that Saka needs, and then he can also invert in midfield. He's not really too comfortable, and he doesn't look very good when he does it. But in the last game of the season, what we saw was Tomiyasu getting in the penalty area a little bit more, and hence him scoring the goal against Everton, the equalizer against Everton. So you won't be surprised to see him invert a lot of the time and get into the midfield a lot of the time as well. So here you have Tomiyasu, Ben White, Calafiori, and Julian Timber. That is another totally different formation that if Mikel Arteta wanted to use, he would use, and no one would actually question him, because that is still a very, very decent team. Now, this what you're seeing here is Gabriel Magalhaes out of the starting 11 and Saliba out of the starting 11 as well. But again, Julian Timber can play at right back, right? So you could have Julian Timber at right back. Let's say we want to rest Ben White, and then you have White totally out of the starting 11, totally out of the starting 11. So you have Timber at right back, Calafiori at left back, Tomiyasu moving into the center back line, and then you bring in William Saliba. This team is insane, right? What we have right now at Arsenal in terms of options is practically insane. This should not happen. So you have that. Saliba, Tomiyasu, Calafiori, and Timber. Still, you have the same options. This time you can invert with these two moving into midfield. They're very good at doing that. And then Thomas Partey dropping in between Tomiyasu and Saliba. If you don't want that, you can invert with one of them. Calafiori stays, Timber goes, or Timber comes back, and then Riccardo Calafiori goes the other way. So what Mikel Arteta is going to achieve with this, there's so many combinations that we can look at, like Alexander Zinchenko, obviously, can be allowed to play, in midfield. Most of you have said, Zinchenko should play in midfield. So we could play him in midfield. And then the other thing we could see, people have said Arsenal should play with two attackers. Probably that could happen. So if a player like, let's say, Thomas Partey is deleted out of the starting 11, which I'm not saying should happen, but if we get Thomas Partey out of the starting 11, we could have Julian Timber drop in there. So we could have Timber drop into, the midfield area around there to replace Thomas Partey. And then we could play, a total back three with, let's say, maybe Gabriel. So let's go with Gabriel. He's the one that I think would be very, very good alongside William Saliba. So we play this kind of back three, but instead of playing Thomas Partey, we play Timber. Now, what this allows us to do is because you have Timber right here, in here, it allow you to play Declan Rice a little bit further forward and allow you to play the likes of Kai Havertz and Martin Odegaard a little bit further forward as well. So this is going to be an interesting season for Arsenal fans, but a very, very interesting season for Mikel Arteta. Because as manager, now what he can do is he can just wake up in the morning and he inverts on the left-hand side with Riccardo Calafiori for 10 games, and then in the next 10 games, he inverts with Timber or White on the right-hand side, and then totally he changes it, and then he starts inverting with two players moving into midfield with Calafiori in midfield, and then with Timber in midfield as well. But there is also the option of having a player like Alexander Zinchenko move into the team with Calafiori, with Gillen Timber. Those are three midfielders who are, defenders midfielders were disguising as defenders. So again, that allows you to suffocate teams, that allows you to, just take good care of the ball. This team with Riccardo Calafiori is much better. He makes us much better in terms of options. The only question is, will he be able to stay fit with the Premier League intensity and roughness? We wait to find out. Hit the like button, and I'll speak to you right in the next one. Ciao.